that Dr. Ambedkar, the greatest champion of promoting education to all, created a new era in India through his intellectualism. The entire world acknowledged him as symbol of knowledge. The young minds should learn and became the torch bearers of enlightened India. This webinar reveals the education philosophy of Dr. Ambedkar. Here, our concern is to make the students and participants to be familiar with Ambedkar's educational philosophy. The hurdles he faced and encountered itself made him the stout believer in the spread of education to liberate the oppressor. The second aspect of this webinar is to have a close interface with today's education policy. I am confident Dr. Jagannath.K.Dange is the right choice to speak on this occasion. As an educationalist who has worked on various dimensions of education from primary to higher level and having associated with various decision making committees, would definitely contribute to the debate on this issue. In this webinar, we have nearly 1,500 participants registered. The Google Meet will not support this huge number, but through YouTube, they can participate and pose their queries in the chat box. I am one and all. I welcome one and all and invite the speaker, Dr. Jagannath.K.Dange, to speak on this important occasion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hope I am audible.
Yeah.
And I request all the dignified participants to mute their mics so that you can listen me quite properly. Good morning, very well. The University of Mysore, Dr.B.R.Ambedkar Research and Extension Center, Sheshadripuram Education Trust, Sheshadripuram Degree College, Mysore, have organized this wonderful and unique program. It's a webinar on education philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, an interface with National Education Policy 2020. The president of this program, Professor Somshekhar sir, and my very good friend, the moderator of this program, Dr. Narendra Kumar, Professor Saume Madam, the principal of Sheshadripuram Degree College, Ms. Shalini and Sridevi Madam, Manu Raghavendra, and all the teaching fraternity of both the institutions who are witnessing this program, and the dignified participants across the country who have enrolled and witnessing this, a very unique program, I feel, which is a need-based one. I have given a responsibility of delivering a talk on the issue which may be very unique in terms of the educational philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is the one aspect. And the second important aspect is, I would like to give you a brief idea about the overview of National Education Policy 2020. And the third important thing I will do here is, I will try to find the interface between these two aspects. One is the educational philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, and another aspect is the National Education Policy. Hope my PowerPoint is visible to you all. Is it visible?
Yes, Yes, sir, it is visible. You can go ahead.
Yes, fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, one important thing I would like to highlight here is Ambedkar's education philosophy is being extracted or derived based on the principles he thought of, based on the memorandums he has given to the different agencies and the government, based on the speeches he has delivered, and based on the writings. So all those things have been considered for extracting and deriving the education philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. And I tried my level best to put all those things in the form of books. The one book you find here, which is in the English, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's Philosophy of Education, and which is also being presented in the form of Kannada as well. It's Dr. B.R. Ambedkar-An Shaikshanika Vicharadharigalu. And those things I have extracted and brought few of them, not all of them, to give you a comprehensive idea regarding the Ambedkar's philosophy of education. And my presentation goes something like this. In the initial stage, I would like to tell you what is the philosophy of education. It's very essential to understand. And then comes why Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy of education, when so many philosophers are there. And what is the Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy in terms of the aims of education, in terms of school and higher education, and what all the methods he presented in his views regarding the teaching, and how must be a teacher according to Ambedkar, and what kind of discipline he is expecting in the education arena, and what must be the curriculum structure in the school and college or university. We all know that he was fond of books and he had constructed a big library in his home. What was having that library and why Ambedkar was so fond of books? So in terms of his philosophy, we will discuss those things. And we all know that Ambedkar was a great student as well as a teacher. And how he was a great student and what made him to become a good teacher, we will discuss those things in my presentation. And at the end, I will give few of the overviews on NEP-2020 in terms of its guidelines. I will also present those views in terms of finding out the interface of those guidelines with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar's philosophy of education. This is how my presentation would be in this session. To begin with, yes, it is very essential to understand what philosophy of education is all about. Why it is so important in education, philosophy role. Philosophy of education is fourfold. The very first fold is the study of purpose is very important. When we give education, when we take education, it's very essential to know what is the purpose of education. And purpose in terms of its knowledge, in terms of its skills, in terms of its values. That's the first fold. And the second important fold is processes. We carry out a lot of processes in education. The philosophy will help us how about the processes would be in teaching learning process, in terms of teaching methodologies. And the third important fold is the nature of education, how education nature must be, maybe in terms of education overall, as well as the teaching learning process. And the fourth important fold is the ideals of education. What would be the ideals of education in terms of the eternal goals, the objectives which we have framed for giving the education, maybe in terms of the virtues we have or the virtues we must reach, we must imbibe through education, and the language, not just the speaking language, it's overall the personality of an individual. So how must we develop with that ideal in education and enabling the humanity? So these are the important four folds of philosophy for which we need to understand through education. And there are three important categories of philosophy they have come across in education. One is the ideas, second one experiences, and third one development. Why ideas? Ideas is nothing but what theories we come across, what theories we want to apply in the teaching learning process in terms of giving and taking the education, how we think, how we train our students to think in a logical manner, what about the liberal education and how ethics would be imbibed among the learners. So these may be a few ideas which we come across in education. And the second important thing is what experiences we want to give. It may be through curriculum, it may be through different approaches. Approaches may be child-centered or teacher-centered. And for that, we use different methods, strategies, and techniques. And the third important category is development. Development of the content, which is means of a change. That's what we expect among the learners to change with the help of education. So these three important categories will definitely help us in understanding the philosophy. If you take the example of Dr. Ambedkar, he had a lot of ideas towards the entire mankind. And those ideas he wanted to imbibe through education. Those were the ideas. And he had a lot of experiences as well. He learned in India as well as in the West. So what experiences he had, maybe inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom. So those experiences, how to accumulate, how to imbibe, how to nurture our children to become a good citizen of the society. So those experiences must be trained in the education sector, and how to develop those nurturing talents is very important through curriculum. So these three categories will also help us in understanding the philosophy of anybody. And naturally, what I'm expressing now on Ambedkar's philosophy, which really help us in understanding easily based on three important categories as well. And naturally, we say that most of the time. Philosophy is what philosophers do. Yes, if you just see the overall history of the philosophers, the way they lived, the way they preached, the way they written something, the way they approached the society, condemned, maybe suggested something, it all comprises the philosophy of an individual. So naturally, whatever philosophers do, naturally that will be the philosophy of that particular person. So here also, whatever incidents we come across in the life history of Dr. Ambedkar, whatever ideals he had proposed, he had expected to build a good country, a good nation, and what kind of thinking he had in terms of analyzing, in terms of approaching the problems, and whatever theories he understood and realized and he proposed, it all comes under the arena of philosophy. And that's what his philosophy is all about. And there are four important things we should understand before understanding the philosophy of education of Dr. Ambedkar. The philosophy of education matters a lot on four important things. The first thing is how to reflect about our practices. There are a number of practices we do in our teaching learning process in the education sector. How they are they appropriate, or whether they need to be changed is a matter of a concern. Then the second thing is there are a lot of inconsistencies based on our beliefs. We may be having certain beliefs that this would work, but sometimes that particular process may not work in an appropriate manner. To avoid it, we have to rethink. So we have to change our beliefs also. So changing and avoiding those inconsistencies, we need to have a philosophy of education. And third important thing, we must be aware of what we are committed. Education is known for something. The very intention and objective of education is to do something, to achieve something. Are we committed in that? Are we aware of what we are doing? To know that, the philosophy of education will help us in understanding, in making us aware of those things. And the fourth important thing is considering the alternative goals and ideals. If something is not working good, that's what Ambedkar tried throughout his life. He tried to practice something based on logical thinking, based on the possibilities. If that thing doesn't work, means he used to change it so suddenly. So that was a big strength of the philosopher, that's none other than Dr. Ambedkar. So those alternative things can be thought of in the education setup with the help of the philosophy. And all those things we can easily comprehend with the philosophy of Dr. Ambedkar. Then another question arises. Why Dr. Ambedkar's philosophy? There are a lot of philosophers in this country, a lot of philosophers around the globe. Why it is Ambedkar? The very important thing I would like to highlight is, we know that Ambedkar is a great economist, a great jurist, political scientist, a visionary, historian, and architect of the Indian Constitution. We call him with all these terminologies. But the life he led, contribution he had given to the entire mankind of his country is to be known and to be disseminated by the teachers who are working in the education sector to the entire masses of students. So that is the need. The reason why is, as we see the philosophy of education of B.R. Ambedkar, it is the outcome of his relentless fight for salvation. We call him as the savior of modern India, and India of today. He brought a lot of change in this country. The changes in terms of he made the country untouchable India into a touchability. It was a big transformation he brought with his vision, and he made there is a disturbance. Please, participants, keep your mic. He made the illiterate masses to the literate, ignorant to aware, and that's how he transformed the exclusiveness to inclusiveness. That was his big strategy. And the third important thing is he made specific to general in terms of reachability and providing opportunity. He made available the opportunities to all the masses, to all the groups, irrespective of its category, caste, religion, gender, etc. And he transformed men to women. Means gender bias was there earlier. Few occupations were allotted to the men, restricted to the men, and few not to women. So that transformation he has brought, and many more things he changed. It's changed because of his attitude, it's because of his understanding of the society and zeal to make this country a knowledge society, as well as expect the social justice in this country. So it is because of his philosophy, it is because of the entire struggle throughout his life made significant changes in this country. And the very important thing we should consider from his life is he proved himself that how education can be used as a weapon to change the society. The best example we get is Ambedkar and all the learners of this country around the globe actually. The students and teachers remember his contributions, remember his style of learning, remember his style of approaching the problems till today. And that's the way all the Ambedkar centers are working really hard, striving their best to make use of his philosophy to reach all the masses. And his philosophy counts a lot at present. So that's the reason why we have to understand his philosophy very eagerly and easily, as well as in a commendable manner, so that we can adopt it as early as possible in the teaching learning process, as well as in the education sector, so that we can expect a great India, a modern India. That's what the dream of Dr. Ambedkar. And one important thing I have to mention here is he is known for the symbol of knowledge. The world is recognizing him as a symbol of knowledge, and we need to have a knowledge society in this country. And every time we say that education is very important for the society, for the building a good country, and it is education which helps all of us to make aware the situations and come out with certain solutions to the problems. And again, we have to remember the legacy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So these are the very important reasons for which we have to understand, or there is a need to understand, the philosophy of Dr. Ambedkar. And before that, it is very essential to know what were the inspirational sources of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. We call them as the teachers of Ambedkar. If you just see the legacy, Buddha, Kabir, Mahatma Phule, Shahu Maharaj, those were the great personalities who fought for equality in the society. And those were the inspirational sources for Ambedkar. He himself told that many of the times. These were the sources I have taken, the legacy I have taken and continued, and I want this country to have or build on an equality basis. And we all know that he has studied in America also, and that Western liberal thought, as well as the humanitarian philosophy expounded by the great thinkers of that time. One of them John Dewey. John Dewey was a great inspiration to the Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. He was almost a hero to Dr. Ambedkar. He himself told that. He has taken inspiration from the John Dewey and many more teachers like John Stuart Mill, Edmund Burke, and Harold Lusky. And he was also trained under distinguished scholars. And to take few of the names like James T. Shotwell, who worked a lot on the establishment of International Labour Organization, who was the inspiration to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, Robinson and R.A. Seligman, who really helped Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in sharpening his intellectual abilities and developing the analytical power. So these were the inspirations behind Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, who really cherished, molded and nurtured the great philosopher. And Babasaheb Ambedkar has rightly mentioned that education is for social justice. The very motto of education must be to bring the equality in the society. And that's the reason why he defines education in a very different manner. If you just compare his definition of education with other philosophers, it looks quite different. How he has derived it, how he has described it, yes, he says the right way to cut social slavery is education, and education which will enlighten oneself. So three important aspects he highlights in the definition. One is always the education will enlighten the individual, enlighten the learner. He has considered the downtrodden masses. It's considered to all actually. Education should enlighten. For what? To come up and gain something in the society. What has to gain a learner? He has to gain the social status, economic betterment, and political freedom. These three important aspects he has described. So education will help us in enlightenment and to come up and gain the social status, economic betterment, and political freedom, so that every individual to achieve the unique potential which one has. Everybody is having unique potentialities. So it is the education which has to provide opportunity for achieving the best in the individual. And not only just gaining is important, and that individual has to give unique contribution to the society. So these three aspects are very important. One is enlightening oneself, coming up and gaining something in the society, and with that uniqueness, every individual has to contribute to the betterment of society. So that is the intention of Ambedkar through education. And there are aims of education according to Ambedkar. He has rightly mentioned that if you want to believe in God, in the earlier stages he told that, try to believe or try to see your Almighty or God in the food, education and health. Three important aspects for human beings. They must be provided freely. They must be available readily to all the individuals of the country. And he rightly mentions that without the moral values, education would be a more dangerous. So values play a very important role in the education. So every literate, every scholar, we call him as the educated person, must have moral values. And he also says that character building should be the aim of education. Of course, qualifications we may get, we may perceive, but character building must be the aim of education. And he says that knowledge should be blended with compassion and friendliness, always. And he says three important aspects which are to be needed by the educated people. They must imbibe in the education setup. The first one is non-selfishness, impartiality, and wholeheartedness. And he rightly announced that education is like a sword. It could be used constructively as well as destructively. That's what we are experiencing now. Education must be used for constructive purpose. Otherwise, it will deviate from its aim and it will destruct the entire society. And he says schools are like industries, very important industries, and they should produce good citizens. If the schools fail to produce good citizens, if it produces wrong products, means definitely those products will create problems in the society as well as in the country. Hence, the role of schools and colleges and universities are very vital in producing good citizens. And working for the betterment of society should be the motto of educated people. Every educated people should work or do some good work for the betterment of society. And he also mentions that mere earning to fulfill one's livelihood is not a life. Don't consider it as a life. You may be earning something for yourself, for your family. Don't consider it as a life. What is a life then actually? Spend some time to the betterment of people of your people of your society. So that is the real life. And the best example is Ambedkar himself. Whatever he didn't earn much, in fact. He lived in the poverty throughout his lifetime, but he worked entire his lifetime for the betterment of society and for the country. And he expects that all the educated people should work in such a manner. And he says, equality must be the base of education. This is always very unique, we find in his ideologies, in his writings, in his speeches. Unless we expect equality in the education, education will not bring equality in the society or in the country. So that was the big, there should not be any discrimination at all in terms of gender, caste, creed, religion, etc. No discrimination. So equality must be the base of education system. And he also suggested many of the times that education should not be a burden to anybody. It should not be a burden. And all the governments should make and should see that the education should reach all the people of the country and everyone should get it in a least expense. So these two important terms we have to understand. Until today, we haven't reached at that level actually. Though we made a lot of policies, but still our literacy rate is 76%. So that's an important thing we should consider from his philosophy, and that's the reason why he added it in the constitution. He not just preached as the other philosophers do. He added it, he made a law, he put it in the constitution as a fundamental right of every individual of this country, so that everyone will get free and compulsory education who is born in this country. And when you see Ambedkar's philosophy, we normally find that it is a blend of pragmatism of Dewey and Dhamma of Buddha. Two important elements which will mingle in Ambedkar's philosophy, or you can say it's a blend of pragmatism and Dhamma of Buddha. And he always suggested that a secular kind of education is needed for India for social emancipation. We need a secular education where everyone will get equal opportunities, or everyone will be treated equally. So that kind of education system we have, and he rightly mentions that education is not just a layer for the social mobility. It is very important because it opens the doors for their modernization. What modernization we are expecting in the 21st century, the only modernization doors will be opened to the downtrodden and to the entire masses of the country only with the help of education. So he was very clear in his ideology for this next generation. And the basic theme of philosophy of education normally includes the values like liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice. Justice is nothing but the social justice and moral characters. So these important elements he had included in the constitution as well. So he made it very clear that it should be the base of every individual of this country. And only an educated person can understand his class interests. He was very firm that the reason why we should get education is by getting education, we can understand very easily the problems of our people. And we can expect some kind of a unity. Education, with the help of education, we can expect unity among those groups. So that's the reason why he stressed more on education. And he also says that education makes a person fearless. Fearless means that kind of a knowledge we will be having that intrinsic power so that we will come to know our rights. When a person becomes fearless means when we come to know our rights, as well as that inspiration will help us or inspire us to struggle for our rights. So that's what's the intention of Ambedkar regarding education, and it should be made available to all. And he says there are two important purposes of knowledge. We should seek the knowledge for the benefit of oneself and for the benefit of others. So which means whatever knowledge we gain, we should use it for ourselves as well as use it for the society. Society means for others. And use education as a treatment to bring equality in the society. So that was his intention. Always, if you want to use it, education as a treatment, definitely we expect some kind of equality in the society. So that's the reason why he has continuously and comprehensively concentrated on these important values. And he was a great student also. We all know that. He was the first to complete the matriculation, pass the matriculation exam from the Dalits especially, and he joined education with the special subjects economics and politics, and he completed it in the year 1912. He was the first to do that. In 1915, he pursued his MA, majoring economics, with sociology, history, philosophy, and anthropology as other subjects, on Sayaji Rao Gaikwad scholarship from Baroda. So that was a very important thing. He went to study US based on the scholarship. And at Columbia, as I rightly mentioned that, the John Dewey, one of the major philosophers of education in the 20th century, was an inspiration source for Ambedkar. And in 1920, he completed his thesis for MSc Economics from London School of Economics, one of the premier institutions till today, and at that time also. And from Grey University, he has completed the bar, and all his student life, he lived in poverty. This is very important to know that. And studied continuously, constantly, about 18 hours a day. In British Museum also, he was the first person to enter the library, and he was the last to come out. And many of the times, he used to be there throughout night as well. So this was the situation he lived. He was very determined to have the education and make use that education strength as a weapon to make this country a democratic, a true in social justice spirit. So that was the era of Ambedkar. We could easily realize that how he was when he was a student. And as we all know that he was the first person to visit America or to be educated in the United States. It was a great thing at that point of time. And he was optimism as well as the pragmatist view, which really translated his all ideologies into the hope he had in his activities, as well as he has brought into the practical aspects. So those were the two inspirational elements, optimism and pragmatism. We can expect very easily, we can extract very easily from his writings. And he believed that the people should be educated to bring the desirable changes in themselves first. They should change with the help of education, and they should become role model for the entire community. This is the second aspect, so that the total participation expected in the political process. So these three things he has strongly believed with the help of education. Changing oneself, bringing the desirable changes in the society, and making a healthy participation, awareness participation in the political process. And there are a few views also on primary education. He says that the education at primary level is very essential to all men and women, irrespective of any categories, social or economic statuses. It is required to all. And he has rightly mentioned that the books should be published in simple languages, in local languages, so that everybody will be having an opportunity to read and understand the content, to knowledge themselves, to have that knowledge, to make aware of the things it is very essential to publish and circulate in the local languages. And he also suggests that circulating libraries must be there so that it will reach the night scholars also. We talk about the adult education now. It was the concept of Dr. Baba-Saheb-Ambedkar. He rightly mentioned there must be circulating libraries so that we can reach the youths as well as the illiterate masses of the rural community. And some special bonus prizes should be given to the teachers who are educating the backward class pupils. So special provisions must be there. So this was the intention of Dr. Baba-Saheb-Ambedkar, especially to primary education. And he rightly mentioned that the primary education was not enough. Very, very importantly, he has suggested that don't stop at primary education. We need to have more, which means we need to take the higher education as well. And he encouraged that. Try to take more higher education from the downtrodden sector. And he also suggests at different intervals that special provisions must be there in the budget allocations for these masses. So that was the view of Dr. Baba-Saheb-Ambedkar in terms of primary as well as higher education as well. But the very important thing we should consider here is Ambedkar was against commercialization of education. He has rightly mentioned it that state should take the responsibility of education. And he expected that democratic values must be developed in the school setup itself. How to do it? Yes, the duties and responsibilities of the individuals must be trained in the school setup. And he expects that the voting must be trained in the schools. He was very unique in his approach and said that these elements of duties and responsibilities of the democratic country must be trained in the schools itself. So electing the leaders, electing the representatives must be done in the schools so that all the children in school will understand the process of democracy, wherein importance will be given to the every individual. So this is what the concept of Ambedkar he had preached, he had narrated in many of the aspects. He has written also that the school should function in a democratic setup. And he also suggests that the importance must be given to the teamwork. But most of the time in the schools, we give activities individually. But he says, no, give individual activities, but see that they should do it in the teams so that a team spirit can be developed among the students. Meanwhile, you can expect the value of empathy, compassion, and sharing. So these elements, these values are very important for the community. So community needed values must be trained at the school. So that was the intention of Ambedkar on democracy and the school processes. And he had given a list of methodologies, how a teaching method should be carried out in the schools and colleges. He was very much focused on learning by doing or learning by practice. Naturally, it's a concept of pragmatism. As I rightly mentioned that John Dewey was the sole inspiration or the major inspiration for Ambedkar, and naturally we expect that inspiration, that elements in his writing and approach as well. So he says education through self-experience. So every student has to experience self. So based on the experience, he should learn it. So experimental approach, scientific methods would be quite apt in the methods of teaching. And he had a lot of intention and he expects that there must be the self-confidence developed methods. So should be applied, they should be practiced in the teaching learning process, like conference, seminars, discussions, question answers methods, where we expect the democratic principles, where we expect liberty, equality, and fraternity among the participants. So everybody's answers, everybody's views can be shared with others easily, and all the views can be accepted wholeheartedly, respected, as well as criticized in a positive manner. So these are the important methods we should use in our teaching learning processes. And he expects that there must be educational tools. So nature study is very important. Ambedkar was very much interested in visiting different places. He had a lot of tours in his lifetime. So he expects that when we visit some new place, we learn many things. We will come to know many issues of the society. So that must be added in the teaching learning process. And he expects project method. It's one of the creative activity wherein inquiry, spontaneous and purposeful activities can be expected in that method, and everyone will be having equal opportunity to contribute. So till today, we are giving the projects right from KG to the PG. So it's a very good method. He prescribed it. And vocational subjects are very important. He says learning with earning, and that's the reason why he himself started many of the vocational schools in Solapur. And he also given importance to the health and hygiene aspects. He always suggested that actually all the downtrodden masses should be hygienic, should be healthy. That's the important thing he had added in one of the made it as a one of the method in the teaching learning process. And he has prescribed the agricultural activities also. Again, he has started a school to train the agricultural activities to the masses, and he expected freedom of child and interest of child are very important in the learning process. So give preference to the individual child according to the interest, according to the freedom, the child will learn. Don't impose everything on the learner. That was the intention of Ambedkar, and he has proposed different language formulas as well. But he was very particular regarding the international language, English. He says that to understand the international knowledge arena, it's very essential to have the knowledge of English. We must be able to speak and understand English, as well as he had given importance to the regional as well as local languages. So these were the important aspects of things which are related to teaching, learning at schools and colleges. In relation to higher education, he says that higher education should bring the social and economic changes. Two important aspects it should do. One is the social change, and second one is the economic change. And he has rightly mentioned that the advancement of knowledge is very important at higher education level. And he states that technical and scientific training is important in universities and colleges. The reason why he says is, he rightly narrates, he quoted it. This is the age of machine. Countries with technical and scientific training has risen to the highest pitch, and India wants to have that kind of a caliber through education. So the technical and scientific training is very important at higher education. And he was the first to talk about the power must be given to the academic council. Still it is there. It is the Ambedkar vision who had suggested that academic council should be the highest body in the academic matters. That was the great suggestion given by Ambedkar, and he says that teachers must hold all the academic and administrative posts. So till today, all the academic and administrative posts are being held by the teachers, because he knew that teachers are the real source of those temples of learnings, and they can understand the problems, and they are the best resources to give the solutions to the education sector. So that's the reason why Ambedkar suggested that the teachers must hold all the academic and administrative posts. And he has rightly mentioned that teaching universities must function as teachers' universities. So teachers must be given due importance in those universities. They should be given the full freedom in terms of having the curriculum, in terms of framing the curriculum, in terms of teaching, in terms of assessment as well. So that was the intention of Ambedkar regarding higher education, and he had a dream of university also. On 15th of August 1924, he gave his memorandum to the University Reform Committee, Mumbai government, and few of the aspects I have brought here. He says, university should be the body of learning, not only for examination, which means university must work on learning, not just on examination. Don't give more preference to the examination. Rather, university should function as the learning centers. That was the intention of Ambedkar. And he has rightly mentioned that affiliation system must be there. The private colleges should work under the control of universities. That was the suggestion given by Dr. Ambedkar to the University Reform Committee, and university should give preference to all the members of the society, regardless of their caste, creed, and religion. And he had also suggested that importance of university library. He said the knowledge source is library. So library must be well versed, well developed, so that all the stakeholders can come and have the knowledge. So that was the intention of Ambedkar regarding the library. And the very important thing we must note here is he suggested to start the Department of Philosophy in every university. Why? The reason is that philosophy university department should teach all the religious values, not just one religion, so that the secularism values can be developed among the learners of university. So that was the intention to start the Department of Philosophy in every university. And he had also suggested to group the departments under faculty till we are following it. He had also suggested to have board of studies till all the universities have following it, and university should be the society oriented. That was his concern, not just the school education. Universities should focus on societal issues, and they should also train the youngsters on scientific and unbiased values. A very important thing. And university ought to consciously strive to make society aware of its history and culture. That's the reason why he highlights, he stated many of the times that unless we know our history, we cannot create history. This was the intention of Ambedkar. So every learner in the university should know the history of their state as well as the country in total, so that we can expect mutual harmony and cooperation among the community people. So that was the intention, and the true democracy must be developed, must be seen in the university. That was his intention. So starting from the school till the university, we should train our learners in such a manner that they should be well versed in democratic principles. They should imbibe all the values of the democracy and constitution, so that they will be the good citizens for the country. That was the intention of Ambedkar. And few aspects relating to the curriculum, syllabus, and transaction. He told that science and technology courses must be there in the higher education, and every curriculum should develop rationality, because rationality will help us in thinking, in identifying the truth and untruth. So unless we do it, unless we know it, we will not be in a position to understand the realities. So each and every curriculum must train the learners in this manner. And teachers must be given opportunity to frame their own curriculum, which is need-based one. What society is expecting, what country is expecting. So that need-based curriculum must be developed by the teachers themselves. And he also suggests that the university students must read the genius people of the world. The reason why is they may get a spark of intellect. Around the world, you may get number of genius people. So understanding their lifestyle, understanding their ideologies will help our youth in sparking the intellectual abilities, so that they can contribute good to the society, good to the country. That was the intention of Ambedkar, and he always suggested that try to have interactive teaching learning process based on social issues. Social issues must be there for the interaction process, and we train our students for self-learning. Always our students depend on the teachers, but we should provide opportunities for their self-learning. That should be the intention of the curriculum transaction. And teachers must be academic stuff they should have. It should be rewarded every time. And he alarmed that actually friction among the staff should not be there. And he expects that there should not be a division of seniors and juniors. If you create that kind of atmosphere in the education setup, in the teaching fraternity, that will spoil the friendly atmosphere. Friendly cooperation will not be there in that setup. So he expects that all seniors and juniors should work together for the benefit of the domain of the knowledge, as well as for the benefit of students' community. And teachers must be role models for students, so that they can contribute something original. And he says a professor should not be only learned. He must speak in clear tone. Clear tone means whatever knowledge he has, He should present it clearly without any bias. And he must be well versed with the social structures, well versed with the content, well versed with the strategies of teaching. So that kind of competency is expected among professors, and that's what the suggestion of Dr. B.R.Ambedkar. And he says a professor should always be a learner. He says that actually he should visit libraries, he should purchase new books, he should have the updated content so that he can contribute significantly to the knowledge domain of students. And he rightly mentions that always professors should try to tell the truth and practice it. Whatever truth is there, whatever reality is there, that must be practiced and that must be preached by the professors of the university. That was the intention and suggestion of Dr. Ambedkar. And he says a teacher is very important in students' life. He should not be a dictator, he should not be a taskmaster, but he should be a leader of that group. Consider that the students group is your following and you must be a leader. You should act as a leader, provide ample opportunities, be democratic in your approach, and you must be patient, friendly, enthusiastic, and cooperative in your approach. That important values a teacher must have in higher education sector. And the teacher must be a resource person who can guide very easily to the students, who can help the learners in the learning process. And whenever a problem comes with the student, teacher must be there to help. So that was the intention. And every time the teacher must provide ample opportunities for the learners to come out with their own suggestions, to come out with their solutions to the problems, so that every learner will understand the context very easily and they can think, they can analyze with the knowledge they have, and they can come out with their own solutions. So this kind of approach will be very useful for the next generation, for the entire youth, which can contribute to the country's development. So problem solving attitude must be there with the learners, and that should be developed by teacher. And the relationship, he had a great relationship with his teachers. Ambedkar experienced a strong and a healthy relationship with the teacher, with the John Dewey and all other teachers actually. And the same kind of experience he wanted to have in Indian education system. And he said actually the cooperation and coordination between teachers and students is must. Every teacher should like all the students, and both teacher and students should work in an authority of reason and experience manner. Every experience they should have it on live basis, and authority of reasoning is very important from both teacher and students perspective. And they should maintain a freedom of thought so that they can express very easily to one another. They can share their views, and disciplined matter in terms of morals and conduct must be there from teacher's perspective. And every time the teacher must have inspiring ideals. So unless teacher inspire himself, the teacher will not inspire others. So that was the intention of Ambedkar. And he says each time teacher and students inspire each other based on their ideologies, based on their readings, based on their attitudes actually, they can interact very easily, so that inspiration should go hand in hand. That was the intention of Ambedkar, and Ambedkar himself was a great teacher. He worked in two institutions. One among them is the Sydenham College in 1980. He worked as a professor of economics, and he was also principal of Government Law College in 1935 for some time. And when he entered into the classroom in 1918 especially, the students were not in a position to accept him because he was a Dalit teacher at that point of time. And by seeing his scholarliness, depth of content, depth of knowledge, and the inspiring style of teaching, his dress code, punctuality, concern towards the students impressed all the students, and they started liking Ambedkar. And in a very short time, Ambedkar became a renowned teacher, which means what we can extract from Ambedkar's experience is we must be very scholarly. we must be good in our content. We must have the depth in the content. We must have good knowledge in terms of our fields. We must inspire every time. The style we use in the teaching learning process must be approachable to all the students. Or even the way we look is also very important for the students. And we must be punctual, as well as we should have a great concern towards students. So these are all the important points which definitely help, or definitely helpful for the students to get impressed by their teachers. So this is what all the teachers we should learn in our teaching fraternity, teaching arenas, as I can say. And he rightly mentions that teachers should have a broad-mindedness, because if you want to expect a good society for country, means definitely teachers must have broad-mindedness, so that irrespective of students groups, they should help each and every learner to come out with good results through education. So all the teachers must be broad-minded. It is very important. And he says that actually prejudices must not be with the teachers. Many of the times we come with prejudices to the classroom. When we talk with a student, we may be in a prejudices. So Ambedkar says, remove all these prejudices. When you are a teacher, you should be available, you should be reachable to all the community of students, irrespective of their categories. So that should be the philosophy of Dr. Ambedkar regarding teaching. And we all knew that actually he was very disciplined in his approach, in terms of attending programs, in terms of his approach, in terms of the way he looked. So every time we used to see the disciplined nature of Ambedkar, and that's what he expected among students also. He said, external discipline will not help you. There is a Okay, thank you. So expected internal discipline or inner discipline is very important, which we can get through giving freedom and conducting activities. So shared activities and cooperative learning will help all the learners in having the inner discipline, the self-discipline. So that was the intention of Dr. Ambedkar. So we know that Ambedkar was a very voracious leader. That's what I described in my earlier slide, that he was the first to go to the library and last to come, and that too without food and water. That was a very important thing we should consider. The life he led was exemplary. And whenever he used to go visit the foreign countries, he used to purchase a lot of books. When he visited for the second roundtable conference, he had purchased 32 boxes of books. And when he visited New York, once 2,000 books from the bookstall he purchased. So it shows that he was very fond of reading and books. Once, a very important incident I have to mention here, Madan Mohan Malviya, he wanted to purchase all Ambedkar's books for 2 lakh rupees. And Ambedkar denied. He told that losing books means losing life, which means books as life that Ambedkar considered. And that was the sole inspiration for Ambedkar to open the doors of knowledge. That was his thinking. And he also expected that all the learners must visit library continuously, and every educated person should have a library in their homes. And that's the reason why he wanted to be a role model for all the educated masses. For that, he constructed a library in his home in the Mumbai, actually, and he has stocked 50,000 books in his home. So such a great education is to be had in the past. And once he said that actually, eyes are very important organs for my body. The reason why is these organs will help me in grasping the knowledge. If there is no eyes, there is no life. So that was the intention of Ambedkar regarding books, regarding knowledge. And he himself wrote more than 40 books, thousands of letters he had written, 18,000 pages almost, and world's biggest constitution. So all these contribution goes to Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. Whatever he thought, whatever he experienced, whatever he expected, he has brought into the writings in terms of his books and other speeches. And being an editor, he had brought four important magazines like Muknayak, Bahishkrita Bharat, Janata, and Prabuddha Bharat. So, in all those magazines and newspapers, he started creating awareness regarding education. It's very important. Why education is important and how to seek it. What must be the role of a government in giving education? Why education is required for all the stakeholders, all the masses. So that was the intention of Ambedkar in disseminating all his ideologies, maybe in terms of liberty, equality, fraternity, or all the values which he has narrated in many of the times have been put in writings. And the overall ideology of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar can be summarized in these 9 principles, whatever I thought. Equality, liberty, and fraternity, which means education should be based on equality. When you expect equality through education, education sector must be on equal basis, equality basis, so that we can expect liberty and fraternity through education. And he had given a slogan also: be educate, be agitate, and be organized. Yes, first it is very essential to educate ourselves. When we educate ourselves, we will know the things in reality. We will understand the context very easily. Then we can have a clear-cut idea about educating, what to do, what not to do. And when we start thinking of education, definitely all the learned people, all the educated people of the mass will come and contact you, come and mingle with you, so that you can organize well. And the third important element is Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Buddha is knowing oneself, having a self-awareness is very important for all the masses. And Dhamma, it's a value-based education, what we expect. We should have that kind of a value. And when we collaborate, when we work in a coordinated manner, that Sangha will be there in the country. So these are the 9 important principles we can extract from the Ambedkar's ideology. That's how we can conclude. And the second important activity or the work I have is giving the important glimpses of national education policy. A lot of discussion is going on around the country on the overviews or how best this policy will be helpful. And my intention is to give important overviews of those policy. I don't want to go into the details actually, but very important thing I should mention here is the national education policy wanted to address the challenges of education in 5 important areas: accessibility, equity, quality, affordability, and accountability. These are the important areas it should address through education. And we know that Kasturi Rangan was the chairman of that committee, and the members were there. 70 organizations it had consulted, and 216 eminent individuals contributed, and it had followed the earlier policies as well: 1968 Kothari Commission, 86 New Education Policy, and 1992 Program of Action, as well as the TSR Subramanian Committee report and few NHRD's reports. And feedback was also taken from different stakeholders. So this was the journey of the policy, and the very important ideas which it has brought into the notice of all the stakeholders of this country is, it's very clear in its approach. Professor Kasturi Rangan himself says that the education system needs change, not fine-tuning. Tuning is not required. Tuning is not enough to change the system. We need to change it. That was the intention. And in the preamble itself, it had highlighted that it touches the life of each and every citizen. Yes, again, it is, that's what Ambedkar thought of. Through education, we should reach each and every individual. The same thing the policy also carried out. And ability to contribute to this country, yes, fine thing, a very positive note it had told, and creating just and equitable society. So that was the intention of Ambedkar also, and that's the reason why he added a lot of articles in the constitution also to make equitable society. So the policy is also saying in tune with the constitution as well as the Ambedkar philosophy. And it is saying that we want 21st century inspirational goals through education, inconsistent with India's traditional and value systems. So what tradition we had, what value system we had, we wanted to continue for the next generation. So that has to be think of. And we know that it's a vision document, and few visions I have brought here. It wanted to create a vibrant country. It wanted to eliminate the shortage of manpower. Both the ideas were in tune with the Ambedkar philosophy as well. And it wanted to have a flexible subject options for all the students. They can take one from commerce, one from humanity, and one from science. So that multidisciplinary liberal education aspect is being allowed for higher education students to take up the different courses. So it's a good thing. Liberal education, that's what Ambedkar also talked about. And the very important thing is, Ambedkar rightly mentioned that there must be a special provision on education. And the NEP is saying that the GDP must be increased to 6%. Right now it is 3%. So it's a great sign and a great vision also. And caring and sharing must be there. Yes, very good. We want world-class higher education universities. Youth should contribute to the Indian in terms of social, economic, and political transformation. Yes, all these aspects have been definitely go in tune with the Ambedkar's philosophy of education. And the policy is also saying that education for sustainable development. This was also the concept of Ambedkar. He had narrated many of the times. And for the technical skills, Ambedkar has rightly mentioned that they must be added in the higher education. Yes, the policy is also saying that we will be having the fourth industrial revolution. So education must train the students to reach that goal. So these are all the important points which are going hand in hand with Ambedkar philosophy as well as the national policy of education. And we all know that there will be 4-year integrated or undergraduate degrees, entry at various stages and multiple exits. That I will discuss in the next slide. And few of the important overviews of the policy: quality early childhood education, a very, very big impact, I would say. This was needed all these years. But after this policy, from the 3rd year, every child will enter into the school system with food. That's a very important thing. Because recently we got a report from WHO saying that world's most stunted children are in India because of food and health. So this would be a boon for all the children of this country to overcome that problem. So great sign. And 100% gross enrollment ratio, very good move. Again, no hierarchy of subjects. Yes, great thing. It has considered all the subjects in an equal manner. And Right to Education Act till grade 12. So which means when a child enters into the class at age 3 till grade 12, the child would learn free and compulsory education in the education center. So these are all the bright futures and very promising futures which are really in tune with the Ambedkar philosophy. And few among them are vocational education. Ambedkar also supported it. Report cards must be skills and capabilities. Yes, very good sign. There is no hard separation between curricular, extracurricular, and arts and science subjects. Separation should not be there. Every subject is very unique, very important for the society. So that aspect has been added here, and each and every child should learn at least one skill so that economic empowerment would be expected. Ambedkar was also in favor of this. And one important thing it has suggested is common standards for learning in public and private schools. This is a thing to be considered. Whether we can expect the same kind of standards in private and public schools, because they have a different set of curriculums. Some schools run on state syllabus, some schools run on CBSE, and some schools on ICSE. How those standards can be brought in the learning process is a thinking thing. And few among in continuation. Hello. There is a
Hello.
disturbance. Hello.
Yes, sir. You continue, sir.
There is a disturbance,
Sir,
madam.
you please continue. Okay. We'll sort out, sir. You please continue.
Please mute others. Okay, this is the transforming curricular and pedagogical, sir. A new structure is being suggested. Earlier we had 2 years of kindergarten, 10 years of school education and 2 years of PUC, pre-university college. But now it's changed to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, a new pedagogical and curricular structure. It's a great structure, no doubt about that. Definitely, students will be having the different approaches in the learning process, as well as the vocational element will be added in the pedagogical structures. So great move, no doubt about that. And one important thing it suggested is school complexes. It says a school complex will be made, and that complex is not a physical complex. It's a cluster of around 30 public schools from foundational to secondary stage. It's a notional complex wherein 6 to 7 kilometer units area, wherein all the schools will be clubbed and formed a complex. So that will be called as a school complex. The reason why it is saying is the school complexes will help in enabling sharing and learning, sharing of learning, as well as sharing of teachers. Sharing of learning resources means laboratories, libraries, sports, and other equipments, even the fields. And even the school complex would be helpful in sharing the subject teachers, sports and music teachers, art teachers. So this is the intention. The policy is saying that if we have the school complexes, we can easily share those resources and make available all those resources and teachers to all the learners. So this is the intention of this policy. And we have a few concerns here. Ambedkar has rightly mentioned that education should reach everyone in an equity manner. That's very important thing. And here the few concerns we have to highlight or think is it requires reorganization of the system, which is itself a challenging one, because a lot of departments are working. Child and Women Welfare Department is working, Education Department is working, Health and Panchayats are working. So if we implement this complex, definitely all those departments should work in a collaborative manner, or there is a need to have a new department. We don't know what would be the structure. That's a one aspect. Second aspect is, can we expect Anganwadi teachers with the private kindergarten teachers in the foundational course? Can our Anganwadi teachers are sound enough to teach all those teaching learning approaches? Have they learned it properly? So here the quality concern is a matter. That's the one thing. Then second thing is reachability is an issue in school complexes. If you cluster all the public 30 schools in one complex, how to reach the teachers and students? Right now we are having each school in 2 kilometer diameter actually. That is the restriction we have now, and we have established many schools. If all those schools come under one complex means how those teachers go into the other school to teach other students, and how these students will get opportunity to learn from other teachers in terms of sharing resources also. This is an issue. So reachability can be an issue. And the very important thing is there are private sector schools and aided schools also. How to bring all those schools in a school cluster is a challenging issue. So government sector schools will be an issue, okay, but this is in the very intention of government should reach all the students. So that's how we can solve the equity issue. So that is one of the aspects we can think, and it also talks about the inclusion and exclusion aspects also. That's what I was discussing. There are a lot of varieties of schools, lot of varieties of curriculums. How to bring into a single structure, single approach can be an issue we should think. And even teacher qualification varies from school to school. Infrastructure varies from school to school. So how to reach those marginalized section of the society? So there may be a lot of hobblies and towns. So such special schools are required. Right now we are having residential schools. So instead of merging all the schools, why can't we have a special school? That's what the intention of Ambedkar in all these ideas. Government should make use such provisions for all those topics. And one big issue, especially the masses we have, the downtrodden masses, is we have 2 crores of dropouts among the downtrodden. So how to bring those students into the classroom can be a big issue. And NEP also highlighted that skill-oriented, yes, great thing, quality education and making India a global knowledge power, yes, fine. And that vocational element is a German model. It's a great thing but one important element we have to consider is development of infrastructure at the schools can be a big challenge. So for giving vocational skills, we need special laboratory kind of a setup. So that is an issue, but we should have a clear mechanism on that. And reaching the entire student community is also very important. It's not just in the government schools. These kinds of vocational skills must be trained at CBSE as well as ICSE schools. So approach and curriculum and kind of subjects must be same across the country. That's an issue. And few elements I have brought for higher education also. It is expecting to have world class in multidisciplinary universities, increase gross enrollment ratio about 50% by 2035. Yes, fine. It had also mentioned that the policy should work based on the constitutional values. What has been envisioned in Constitution, it talks about the liberty, equality, fraternity, and justice for all. So great thing, this commission has considered the constitutional values as well. And it also expects that the students' community should have critical thinking, communication, problem solving, creativity, and multidisciplinary capabilities. Yes, these are all the things we need in the 21st century. And it has suggested 3 varieties of universities, or you can consider the higher education institutions. The first is research universities, where focus would be on research and teaching, and it is expecting that some 150 to 300 such institutions will be there in the next 2 decades, and the enrollment must be between 5,000 to 25,000. And the policy is expecting these kinds of institutions must be considered as the world-class research university. They should become. So that's the intention. Second type, teaching universities. Only teaching will be done in a priority manner, but little focus will be given to the research as well. And it is expecting 5,000 to 25,000 enrollments in those institutions, and it is expecting 1,000 to 2,000 such institutions in the next 2 decades. Third one, colleges. They run the undergraduate programs and certificate and diploma courses, and some of the vocational and professional courses can also be given with the help in those colleges. And it is expecting 5,000 to 10,000 students enrollment in these colleges. And India wanted to have 5,000 to 10,000 such colleges, but enrollment is 2,000 to 5,000. And these 3 varieties of colleges will be there in the next 3 years. And one important aspect we have to consider here is where Ambedkar rightly mentioned that education should reach all the masses, all the classes of the group, and even it should reach the rural masses as well. But the very technical point we should understand here is, it is saying that there must be 300 type 1, 2,000 type 2, and 1,000 of type 3 institutions. All around comes 12,300 institutions. But right now we are having 51,000 colleges and 993 universities, according to the Aisha report of 1890. If the thing is so, how can we accommodate all those higher education learning students in those institutions is a big challenge. And how best we can provide ample opportunities for the rural masses. If these institutions are there in the towns and district places means, what about the standalone colleges which are running in the rural areas? So that can be an issue actually. And how can they accommodate a big number of students in those colleges, because infrastructure facility is not there, even in the government colleges. And how to increase the enrollment also, because it is expecting 50% of gross enrollment ratio till 2030. So these are the issues we should think. And it is also saying that degree granting powers will be vested with the colleges. So it may be a government or private college. They can run the course, prepare their own curriculum, and they can give the degrees. So degree awarding power will be vested with the each institution. But Ambedkar said that actually university should have a power of monitoring all those colleges actually. If these colleges will be given autonomous status actually, how to expect that quality is one thing. And can we expect that the uniformity of the content will be there in all the colleges, so that if, whoever coming to the different colleges will learn at least a different set of same curriculum? and how best these colleges will reach all the masses can also be thought of, and these are the important things we should consider based on the equity aspect. Equity aspect will be there, and even open and distance learning courses, those institutions can run. The possibility will be given based on the accreditation. And right now we are having very good institutions like IGNO, MANU and state open universities. They are known for the standards. They are known for the quality content actually. And those institutions are also providing some provisions, special provisions for special groups. Can we expect all these private institutions will be working on the same dimensions? So the issue of quality and reachability is a thing we should consider in terms of giving those ODL courses as well. And another important thing is it is talking about MOOC courses, massive open online courses. And one important thing is we know that online mode of learning is a very need-based one, no doubt about that. But can it be reach to all the masses of India is a question, is a thing which should come to our mind. And Indian rural masses don't have the infrastructure as well. In most of the colleges and schools, we don't have that kind of infrastructure. If the thing is not there, just how to take up those courses can be a issue to think of. And right now we are having multidisciplinary institutions actually, and few important institutions like IISc, IIM and IITs. Can we make them as the multidisciplinary institutions is a thing actually, because they are known for their specializations. So we feel that specialization institutions must be there with few considerations, and the rest of the institutions can be given a multidisciplinary standard, because every institution cannot be made as a multidisciplinary institution. So that's the thing. If the thing is there actually, if everybody is given every kind of opportunity to learn the subjects, what are the job opportunities? If all 5 different subjects a student is learning at higher education, means whether the individual will be given for higher education in all the subjects, whether he will be eligible to get the appointment in all the subjects. So what would be the opportunities is a thing to be considered. And right now we are having almost 45% of private universities, whereas Ambedkar rightly mentioned that the state should take the responsibility of education, state and center actually. But right now we are already having 45% of institutions, and probably we may have more institutions in future, and there is a big gap between the district-wise number of institutions as well. In Bangalore we find 880 higher education institutions, whereas in 153 districts of this country have less than 10 colleges. So which means there is a big gap between the number of institutions which prevailed in different districts. And till today, there are 60% of colleges which are located in rural areas. If you make all the multidisciplinary institutions, how about the learners? Can you expect the learners will enroll in all the courses? It's an issue. And even 10% of the colleges are exclusively for girls. And 34% of colleges run only single course or a single program in those institutions, and BAD is about 38%. So which means there are a lot of institutions which are running in rural areas, which are running for exclusive for girls, which are running for single courses actually. If you make them suddenly the multidisciplinary courses, can we expect the enrollment? Can we expect the teaching faculty? Can we expect all the infrastructure? Is an issue. And even when you take the female element actually, undergraduate it is just 67% out of 100. So enrollment ratio is less of females when compared to the males, and even in PhD it is less. So we need to have some mechanisms, because Ambedkar had mentioned many of the times that female must be empowered. If you expect empowerment of society, females are the important element. So that's the reason why if we give more importance to the female learning, definitely we can expect that. And just I have brought these infrastructural percentages of this country. In any of the elements you won't find 100%, which means the universities, the colleges, the standalone colleges which are running in this country are not 100% self-sustained, not 100% in infrastructure abilities in any of the aspects. If the thing is so, definitely the downtrodden and the rural masses will be at risk. And even the unemployment rate is also very high. So the job mechanisms we need to plan and create. Otherwise, if the students won't get opportunity after secondary education, they will just jump into higher education in an intention that they may get a job opportunity after post-graduation. So unless we will have a clear mechanisms for after school education, the job opportunities openings, after the higher education, the job opportunities opening, we cannot expect the vibrant India. So that is the concern. And even it has told about the regulatory bodies also. So in future we will be having NHERA, National Higher Education Regulatory Authority, which is the sole regulatory authority to regulate all the higher education institutions of this country. And UGC will be transformed into a Higher Education Governing Council, which will be responsible for disbursing the grants and fellowships. And current regulatory bodies, as we see the professional standard setting bodies like NCTE, MCI, BCI, and AICT, they will set the standards, that's all. But regulation will be left to the National Higher Education Regulatory Authority. But Ambedkar was a staunch supporter of decentralization. He always expected that democracy will work better when we work in a decentralized manner. So here is also an important issue to be thought of. And it talks about the liberal education, which means we will be having 4 years of bachelor's, 3 years of bachelor's, 5 years of integrated bachelor's, integrated degrees. So which means there is multiple exit and entry opportunities given. For example, think that if 1 year will be completed, that student will be given certificate, second year completed, diploma certificate, third year completed, degree certificate, 4 year completed, honors with research. But the thing arises here is, we should think of whether we have made provisions for job opportunities after certificate and diploma, which means after exit of first year and second year, whether the youth will get an opportunity to work somewhere. So otherwise it will be called as a dropout from the higher education, and dropout rate is very high among the SCs, STs and OBC. It's a big concern. And the 4-year higher education, the degree is meant to study in USA. It's a great sign that now one who completes 4-year integrated degree can study easily masters in USA. But how many of us will get an opportunity is a thing to be considered. And it has rightly mentioned that there may be a merit-based appointments in the higher education institutions. Faculty positions must be filled. Employment, contract employment will be stopped. Yes, great sign. Lot of contractual-based teachers are working in our higher education institutions. So definitely these elements will go in tune with the Ambedkar philosophy. And it has also mentioned that the vice chancellor selection, board of governors selection should be made merit-based, and it's a good sign. And it is also treating that private and public institutions regulatory regime will be same. There will be no disparity between private and public institutions. And one important element, it has also mentioned that commercialization of education will be stopped. That was the intention and idea of Ambedkar also. But how best it is being implemented is a thing to be discussed actually. And it is also telling that no student will be deprived of higher education because of financial inability. So every student will be given an opportunity, and it is suggesting that all the private higher education institutions should offer scholarships. I'm repeating it, all private higher education institutions will offer scholarship ranging from 100 to 50% for at least half of their students. Constitutional based, definitely. And the policy is saying that they should provide. Yes, again, it is in tune with the Ambedkar's philosophy, and Ambedkar expected that every higher education institution or every education institution should work for the benefit of society. And it is inviting the foreign universities to India also. There will be special regulatory governance and contexts And how about the land and infrastructure is a question actually. And whether our all teachers will get an opportunity to work in those universities, whether those top universities will provide opportunities for the downtrodden masses to take up the courses. So whether they are working under the constitutional basis or what is a question actually. And if they will be they give the opportunity, definitely it's a good sign actually. Okay, so we feel that we expect those universities to provide opportunities for all the sectors students. And one important thing it had highlighted that the professional private colleges, those who are running the professional courses, they can fix the fee structure. So it is left to them. Government will not interfere in those fee structures. So it is an alarming thing actually. At one end, it is saying that commercialization will be stopped, and here it is given provision to have their own fee structures. But how to address the commercialization of education can be an issue to think of. And offshore campuses we can have, means public and private universities, we can go into the global south countries like Africa, Latin America, Caribbean countries. We can start up our own campuses there. It's a big sign actually. But again, if all the teachers will be given an opportunity to go there and teach and work there, definitely that would be a big impact on the employment opportunity of this country. But there must be a clear regulation for starting up those courses and appointment procedures. And it is talking about education technology. Yes, we need it. We can't go away from education technology. It is telling that the technology material must be developed in all the languages and it can be used by all the teachers at all the levels. Yes, very good thing. But the concern is actually technology is antithesis to equity and inclusion, because the large share of students who come from lower strata to the colleges and the schools are from scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and other backward castes and poor households. So it is very difficult to maintain that equity, and inclusion is also a problem. And most of the significant portion of our students come from government schools. They come under the underdeveloped regions and remote villages, and sometimes the language is also a barrier in understanding that content. So these are the issues we have to resolve before using technology into the different levels. And online is not a viable alternative for Indian situation, at least at this moment, because recently we got a national sample survey. It is saying that only 11% of the Indian households have computers, 24% internet facilities, which drops 15% to rural areas. And if the thing is so actually, how the digital infrastructure in the schools will be posted is a big challenge, because our rural schools require a lot of technological infrastructures and broadband internet facilities, computer labs. So we need a special industry for that actually, because lacks together infrastructure and UPSs and CPUs we require. So instead of taking those materials from different countries, why can't we have our own industries which can prepare all these materials? And even free internet facility would be the need of the hour. So government should look after that also. Unless we provide these materials, this technology cannot be a viable alternative for the regular classroom. It is talking about vocational education, fine thing actually, and adult education, yes, good opportunity for all the rural masses, and which will also help us to overcome the unemployment problem also. And we need energized teaching faculty, recruitment must be there, recruitment track must be prepared till 2030. Yes, everything is going in tune with the Ambedkar's philosophy. And the very important thing is it wants to promote the Indian languages. And I feel Ambedkar was rightly mentioned that all the curriculum must be prepared in Indian languages so that it should reach all the groups of people. So in tune with that, actually, yes, these special institutes will be helpful in translating all the content from one language to other language, which will definitely address the issues of learning in terms of science, in terms of history, in terms of culture as well. So reachability can be expected with the help of this very innovative program. And there will be a National Research Foundation, yes, 20,000 crore will be allotted to that, and it will give funds to all the disciplines to conduct the research, and it is also supporting the fellowships, doctoral fellowships as well as the doctoral fellowships, and it is restricted to 500. And I feel that we require more actually. Just 1,000 of fellowships will not serve the purpose actually. More fellowships are required. And empowering the private institutions. Now, the National Research Foundation funds can be used by the private institutions. So that is very important actually. It's not the government institutions who use the funds. In future, the private institutions can also make use of government funds. Then they should be having a social responsibility to maintain, to follow the constitutional laws, to give the provisions to the masses as well. And there will be a Rashtriya Shikshak Ayog, which is the National Education Commission, apex body constituted and chaired by the Prime Minister. And a few aspects, few last things as I can say is, we need education, always education reform can be expected and implemented only with the support of state government, because it is in the concurrent list. And 6% GDP, yes, it is a very good sign, but law is needed on that actually, because no state government is spending 6%. If law will be made on that, definitely the 6% should be utilized for the education purpose, so that many of the unreachable group can get education. That's a great second important thing. And third important thing is there are 80 lakh teachers and 14 lakh higher education teachers working in this country, and we need world-class models of training, because when we expect a vibrant country and knowledge country for the entire world, actually, we require competent teachers, and training is the need of the hour. And vacancies and fair appointments is another important aspect, and policy is also expecting that there must be a fair appointments in all the levels. And even the private universities and multidisciplinary institutions of teacher appointments must have the roster and women reservations, so that every group of teachers will come and work in the higher education setup. And private sector role is very important here. They should give the provisions for low socioeconomic status groups, a single child, single girl child, SC, ST, OBC, women. So all these groups should be given a fair opportunity for the learning in those institutions. And NEP talks about inclusion, and we feel that we need special provisions for representation in terms of women, in terms of physically challenged, in terms of rural students, transgender, and other suppressed groups. It may be regional as well as language, and the special interest must be shown to the sports and health issues as well, because India is suffering a lot from this COVID-19. So these are the important aspects we should think on the basis of Ambedkar philosophy and in tune with the National Education Policy 2020. And I hope I have taken a little bit more time of yours in presenting my views, because concept is like that actually. The whole Ambedkar philosophy is itself a very big area. In that area, a few of the aspects I have brought and presented it to you. And if any questions are there, you're welcome.
Well, turn off your mics, participants. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the beautiful talk. Now it is time for interactive session. There are few questions already raised in the chat box that I will be asking sir directly, and the others, if you wish to ask some questions, please you can type your questions in the chat box, which will be asked by me to sir. Okay, but a few questions that have been already asked are like, sir, Dr. Sarojini Sahu is asking whether this environmental education, what about the environmental education in Ambedkar's philosophy of education? What is the stand given to environmental education in Ambedkar's philosophy of education? Over to you, sir.
Okay, a very good question, I would say, because a lot of crisis is going on in the environmental area, as we can say. And Ambedkar was always intended to have good environment in terms of social environment, as well as the physical environment we could see, and natural environment which we need to have for good society. This is one aspect. Second important thing is Ambedkar was fond of plants. Whenever he used to visit, whenever he used to inaugurate something, means he used to plant a tree. So that was the very importance he had given at that point of time. So he has rightly suggested that the environmental education must be a part of school curriculum. Okay, there are many aspects actually. Few of the aspects I have brought and presented you. In the book, you find a lot of things related to environmental aspects as well. He was for it. He was for it.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there is another question from Professor Rajshekhar, which goes this way, that the government is bringing this entrance exam to all the courses like medicals and etc. etc. So the professor feels that the poor students cannot afford and access these exams. So what are your suggestions towards this? I think it's with regard to the NEP is speaking, I suppose, that making the entrance examination for courses like medicals and engineering and all, government has made it compulsory, where rich people can afford it. But what about the poor students, and they are not able to access and afford? So what are your suggestions towards them?
Definitely. What I can suggest you is, see, not just engineering and medical. The NEP is saying that there will be an entrance examination for all the post-graduation courses as well as undergraduation courses. So before entering into the multidisciplinary institutions, they should the entrance examination must be conducted by NTA, National Testing Agency. Through that agency, enrollment will be there in different institutions. Again, I will come to the point which I had already narrated in my presentation, that unless we train our students at 12th level, 12th level, because that's the main dimension we have from year 3 to 18. When they come out of 12th standard, they should be able to in a position to attend this exam, and they should have a clear idea about how examination would be, and they must be trained in that fashion that they must be able to attend easily. Otherwise there is a big problem with the language, there is a big problem with the technical or technological issues which cannot be handled by well versed uh, teachers even in the rural areas, I'm telling you. So for the big masses, it is not possible to attend those examinations unless and until which has been treated importantly at the 12th standard. Unless proper training, we cannot expect good enrollment or good applications for these kinds of examinations. So training is required.
Thank you, sir. There's another question from Chaitra Vitalamurthy. She asks, how can we inculcate the values given by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar among our youth these days, the present days? Ambedkar's values, how can we inculcate among the youngsters? Over to you, sir.
Yes, creating that awareness is the need of that's what we are doing here. All the two important institutions are very firm in creating the awareness of Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. And I feel, irrespective of the institutions, irrespective of the courses, irrespective of the levels of education, if we imbibe the philosophy of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, if you make him as the role model in the student community, this country will not change. Not just the rural, just not one sect of community, I'm telling you. Unless you make the real hero for the students, the very life of Ambedkar should be the role model for all the learners. All the learners. The way he taken up education, the way he pursued education, the way he used education to change the society and change the country, we will not change. So that's the only mantra I can say you, formula. We should change ourselves first. How we change? We understand by rationality. That's very important. If you are biased, we will not understand Ambedkar properly. Prejudices will not help. If you are prejudiced, if you are non-rational, Ambedkar will not come to near you. That's very much important. You have to go near him only by having the rational reading and being impartial. Very important. And that's why he says that each and every teacher should be impartial in his approach. It's a noble thought I'm telling you, where you consider it's not for India, it's for entire world. The racism is going on in America. Is it not a lesson for them, the US teachers? Yes, please.
Thank you, sir. The next question.
And I feel a few of the questions the Honorable Presidents will also take.
Yes, there is a next question. Okay, sir. There's a next question by Kalyani Biswal, who is asking how far it is contextual that special schools for special children by Dr. Ambedkar in this present time.
Will you proceed?
Yes, whoever can answer by.
Yes, Professor.
Can you repeat the question, sir, please?
Yes, I am repeating the question. By Kalyani Biswal is asking how far it is contextual that special schools for special children by Dr. Ambedkar in this present time. Special schools for special children. How far they are contextual, how far they are practical according to Ambedkar's philosophy. Did you get my question, sir?
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Shall I otherwise? Okay, see, what is the intention of education? The intention of education is reaching the unreached. That's the first thing. And the Constitution says that equality must be the base of every aspect. Whatever we do, whatever law we frame, whatever education we give. What is equality? Equality then, giving equal representation. If some of the groups have not come up in the society means, it's a loss to the country, it's a loss to the society. Unless we give equal preference and special treatment to them, they will not come up. Who will be at the risk? The nation will be at the risk. Please remember this. Many of the times we say that when special provisions will be given to the special group means it's a loss. No, it's a special advantage. Only by empowerment of all the groups we can expect this empowerment of the country, empowerment of the society. So it is special provisions which will help for unreached groups to come up and maintain their status in the society. So hence we require special treatments in terms of schools, in terms of fellowships, in terms of scholarships, in terms of appointment opportunities. That's the reason why. Yes, next.
Yes, sir. There is a next question from Megha Langer. The question seems to be very general. The question is, being an individual, how can we take part in removing illiteracy in the villages? I repeat the question. Being an individual, how can we take part in removing illiteracy in the villages?
Okay, very, very, very important question, I would say. See, all these years, we educated people. What we did to eradicate illiteracy from this country? This is a question to be asked ourselves first. What we have done? We have pursued all the certificates and we waited for our turn to get appointments in the schools or colleges. And after getting appointment, we started teaching. Have we done anything else than this? But Ambedkar says, spend your time. That it's a duty of educated masses to spend their time to empower the uneducated masses, to make them illiterate, to make them aware of the things. So it is the duty of every educated person to go to the masses, to go to the illiterates and help them. Help them. We always think that it is the duty of the government. No, it is the duty of every literate. It is the duty of every educated person. When we try this, definitely there will be no illiteracy at all. That's why we have special plans also. Each one teach one. Each one teach one is a concept actually. If you try to teach at least one individual in the community, definitely there will be no illiteracy at all. This is what Ambedkar told actually. Go to the masses. Don't stay at your places. When you get time, go to the masses, help them, make them aware of the things, so that they can come up, they can understand well the society and okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. There is one Kannada question.
Probably last one it seems.
There's also one more, but before that, there's one Kannada question. If you are
Okay.
comfortable, I will ask that.
Yes, please.
The Kannada question is: ಆಧುನಿಕತೆಯ ಹೆಸರಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಮಾನವೀಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಮರೆಯುತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯುವ ಜನಾಂಗದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂದು ಕಂಡುಬರುತ್ತಿರುವ ಅನೇಕ ಸಮಸ್ಯೆಗಳಿಗೆ ಶಿಕ್ಷಣದ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ತತ್ವಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಬೋಧನೆ ಅಗತ್ಯ. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಅಭಿಮತ ತಿಳಿಸಿ ಸರ್.
ಸರಳವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ತತ್ವಶಾಸ್ತ್ರವನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ, ತತ್ವಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಿದೆ? ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಮಾನದಂಡಗಳಿವೆ, ಒಂದಿಷ್ಟು ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳಿವೆ. ನೀವು ಬರೀ ಜಾಣರಾದ್ರೆ ನಡೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬದುಕಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳುವಂಥದ್ದೇ ತತ್ವಶಾಸ್ತ್ರ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅಲ್ವಾ? ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಅರ್ಥ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕು ಯಾರಿಂದ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ, ಯಾರು ತುಂಬಾ ಓದ್ಕೊಂಡಿದಾರೋ, ಅವರಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬಾ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳಿದ್ವು, ಅಂಥದ್ದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿ ಕಲಿಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು, ಕಲಿಸ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಧರ್ಮ. ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಅವರು ಅಂತಾರನ್ನ ನಾವು ಓದ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಅವ್ರನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಬೇಕು, ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಗಿದ್ರು ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ, ಅವರು ಧರ್ಮವನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಪರಿಪಾಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು, ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕವಾಗಿ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಇಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರು, ಅವರ ವೈಚಾರಿಕತೆ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತು, ಅವರು ತಮ್ಮ ಸ್ವಜೀವನವನ್ನ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಪರ್ಸನಲ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವೇನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವೋ ಎಷ್ಟು ಸ್ವಚ್ಛಾರಿತರಾಗಿದ್ರು ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕೂಡ ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳ್ತಾರ ಅವರು, ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ಗಳು ಸ್ವಚ್ಛಾರಿತರಾಗಿರ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ, ಮೌಲ್ಯಯುತವಾದಂತ ಜೀವನವನ್ನ ನಡೆಸೋದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಆ ಮೌಲ್ಯಗಳನ್ನ ಪ್ರಾಥಮಿಕ ಶಾಲಾ ಹಂತದಿಂದನೇ ಕಲಿಸೋದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದೀವಿ. ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಚಿಕ್ಕವರಿದ್ದಾಗ ಸತ್ಯವಂತರಾಗಿರಿ, ಸುಳ್ಳು ಹೇಳ್ಬಾಡ್ರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಈಗಿನ ಯಾವ ಶಾಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಹೇಳಿ? ಇದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರುವಂತ ಅವಶ್ಯಕತೆ ಇದೆ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಟೀಚರ್ಸ್ ಆದಂತವರು ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕಾಗಿರೋದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಇದೆ. ಟೀಚರ್ಸೇ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಕಲಿಬೇಕು. ನಾವು ಮೊದಲು ಸತ್ಯ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು, ನಾವು ಮೊದಲು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಿಗೆ ರೋಲ್ ಮಾಡೆಲ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಆ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಕಲಿತಾರೆ. ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಅದನ್ನೇ. ಅಂಬೇಡ್ಕರ್ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಕೊನೆ ದಿನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜನರಿಗೆ ನೀವು ಏನನ್ನ ಹೇಳಕ್ ಬಯಸ್ತೀರಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದಾಗ ಅವ್ರು ಒಂದೇ ಮಾತು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, ನನ್ನ ಲೈಫೇ ನನ್ನ ಮೆಸೇಜ್. ನಾನು ಹೇಗಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಂತ ನೋಡಿ ನನ್ನ ಜನರ ಕಲ್ತ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ದೊಡ್ಡ ಫಿಲಾಸಫಿ ಯಾವುದು ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಆಧುನಿಕತೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ನಾವು ಬರೀ ಮಿಸೈಲ್ಸ್ ಗಳನ್ನ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಯುದ್ಧ ಮಾಡೋದು ಆಗಬಾರ್ದು ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಮೌಲ್ಯಯುತವಾಗಿರ್ತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಜೀವನವನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ, ಜ್ಞಾನವನ್ನ ಪಡೆದು ಸಾಮಾಜಿಕವಾಗಿ ಸುಸಂಸ್ಕೃತರಾಗಿ ಭಾತೃತ್ವದಿಂದ ಬದುಕೋದು ಬಹಳ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾಗಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲರೂ ಬದಲಾವಣೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬೇಕಾಗಿದೆ. ಮತ್ತು ಶಾಲಾ ಕಾಲೇಜುಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅದನ್ನ ತಂದಾಗ, ಕಾರ್ಯಾಚರಣೆಗೆ ತಂದಾಗ ಖಂಡಿತವಾಗಲೂ ಸಾಧ್ಯವಾಗಿದೆ.
Okay, sir, thank you. There is one more very interesting question from Professor Rajshekhar. Is asking, increasing the private institutions and decreasing the government education institution is the greatest threat. So what is your opinion on this? I think you got my question once.
Yes. See, after LPG 1991, this has been started actually. Earlier we had lot of government colleges and universities and aided institutions. When LPG came into picture actually, there were a lot of opportunities and rules were framed to have more private institutions on self-help courses, which means they can charge the fees on those courses and they can run the shows. This was the starting point. And now governments are not in a position to put the investment more on education. The reason why I'm telling you is 1964-66 Kothari Commission had rightly mentioned that there must be 6% of budget allocation on education, which has been told in 1964-66. I'm telling you. But till today, the budget allocation is just 3%, which means government is not ready to spend on education. It is not at all considering education as one of the important elements of human empowerment. If now the committee is saying that there must be 6% GDP on education, if this will be implemented, definitely we can expect double the institutions, whatever we have now. Now we have almost 400 government institutions. If naturally the budget will be doubled, we will be having double institutions as well as more infrastructure in those institutions. So that is what we expect out of this policy. If the same 3% again, no issues actually. There will be more private institutions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. There is, I think, there's the last two questions. With that, I should be ending.
Yeah.
There's one. These two questions are almost interconnected. The first question is goes like this: give free education to all, like in Western countries, like you have some countries like Cuba, USA, etc. And another question is, these days our youngsters are losing their valuable time spending in social media. So how can we work on this direction? So these are the two last questions. If you don't mind, please answer, sir. Thank you.
So one important thing is what Ambedkar did. Ambedkar wrote a lot of memorandums to the government to make education free and compulsory. What we have to do, we should also write, we should request, we should keep saying that yes, education must be free and compulsory at all levels. Now they made it till 12. Why can't we have in higher education also? That's the one thing. Which means the responsibility lies with us, okay, not with the government. Second important thing, you said that a lot of they are wasting their time actually. The reason why they are doing it, they don't have any other option actually. They don't have the jobs. Yes, soon after completion of your courses, if you get a job, definitely you will be busy in other aspects. Or else, if you feel that if you study well, if you get a good, you will be having a good chance in getting still more good job, definitely you will work a lot on that. That's the one thing I'm telling you. Second important thing is there are a lot of disturbances in the society which the youth fail to understand. Every day in one or other mass media, you get a different kind of a disturbing messages, disturbing issues which will come across, and we started thinking on that. We started debating on that, which was not relevant. Which is not at all a need of time. So what we youth should do is, especially, be focused. Again, I'll go to Dr. Ambedkar. When he was a student, many of the freedom fighters came to him and asked that join the freedom struggle. He said that I should take the name. Okay, sorry sir. Lala Lajpat Rai. He went to Dr. Ambedkar and asked that why can't you join the freedom struggle? Ambedkar told, I am here for 3 reasons. We should keep in mind, please remember. Ambedkar told to Lala Lajpat Rai, I am here for 3 things. Reading. Or taking education. I am here to just take the education, not for any other things. So that kind of a responsibility he had. That too he had gone for US on scholarship, please remember. Which means he had to give back to the society. That was his intention. I am here for education, and after getting my education, I had to go to my country and contribute for the development of my country. So what our youth think nowadays, though they may have got free education, though they may have got free facilities in different respects, scholarships, education, do they have that kind of an intention? Whatever they are getting it, they should give back to the society. Here we fail. And this attitude must be developed right from school. In every hostel, we should tune our students in such a manner that whatever education you are getting here, whatever scholarships you are getting, you should pay that to the society because somebody is ready to get it in the next term. So unless we have this kind of intention, definitely we will not achieve what Baba has taught. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, participants, for your questions. Now we would like to also thank sir for a wonderful session and clarifying all the doubts. Now we move on to the other program. Now I request Professor Somsekhar, Director, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Research and Extension Center, Manasa Gangotri, Mysore, to deliver the presidential address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Manu Raghavendra. Indeed, today we had a very brainstorming session from an eminent speaker on the very important subject of today's time. Friends, I must congratulate Dr. Jagannath.K.Dange, who really had done justice to his responsibility of the day. I'm very proud of you, Dr. Jagannath.Dange.
Thank you, sir.
My purpose was very clear when Dr. Ambedkar Center of Seshadapuram College approached us to have a program, and we discussed with them that we should start with the education philosophy of Ambedkar. My purpose, I believe, stand fulfilled today. What was that purpose? This college is having Ambedkar Center, and the staff and the students are from different backgrounds. I mean to say that this college doesn't have social science fraternity. And this was the right occasion for me to make the students and the faculty to have the openings on Baba Saheb's philosophy of education. And when the program started, the very first word used by Sridevi and Prabhu in her welcome address, she started with the cultivation of mind is the essence of human existence, which Baba Saheb has said. That words really focused the clarity that this institution having the name of Ambedkar Center, in one day, that center would become the fountain institute to spread the gospel of Baba Saheb. And the principal also, in her introductory remark, she gave the inputs which Baba Saheb in his writings and speeches has wrote and said. And when the special lecture was started by Jagannath.Dange, he had three important purposes to address. Number one, the philosophy of education. Whenever we say the philosophy of education of Baba Saheb, hardly we feel the words that he has said with regard to education. But today, Jagannath.Dange tried to bring in the philosophy, the philosophical context. We all know the history of education of this nation is not so welcoming. We had a very bad history with regard to education. And coming from that history, Baba Saheb created a new educational history, making education inclusive. Through that, he saw a vibrant India. And today, new education policy symbolizes to have a vibrant India. And Baba Saheb's vibrant India was something which he fought and he framed the framework of having a vibrant India through his democratic constitution. Therefore, the journey which Jagannath-Dange started from the philosophy of education, taking the theoretical foundation from a pragmatic thinker, none other than like Professor John Dewey. Yes, referred John Dewey on many occasions in his writings and also in his speeches, because the philosophical foundation of education, as Jagannath-Dange rightly pointed out, by saying that his pragmatic approach of education, Baba Sahib says, when he inaugurated his own college, Nalanda College, in 1951, the purpose of education should be social continuity. That is the philosophical essence of an education. You should make the society to accept and work for the democratic values. And the questions which the participants have posed, that the values are very important. Education itself is a value. Education itself is a value when it has rationality in that. And our education should ensure right thinking. I'm glad that the speaker has brought in John Dewey and Buddha. Buddha is considered the world's first greatest teacher. And he clearly visualized the philosophy of education and the inroads which Baba Sahib created. And in the second stage, he tried to look into the new education philosophy. And we are now at the inaugural stage. He has also pointed out the shortcomings too. In Baba Sahib's philosophy of education, wherein he depended more on the state. And today, a dependency over the state is not seen because the state has such strength to withhold that it is the primary, it is the priority based sphere for the state to look into the education. When we say the education from the primary to the higher, and we have compartmentalized system. And there is a breakup in this new education policy that the compartmentalized is broke, and we have the space for having multidisciplinary approach. At the same time, we are also having the challenges. The challenges in the sense we have the public-private players. If you look into the past history after independence with regard to the education system, there are improvements and also there are some important issues which needs to be properly diagnosed to address. Friends, we know the heterogeneous society having more challenges. Having more challenges in the sense we have more time to make education as a fundamental right. Baba Sahib was for a staunch person to support that education, inclusive education should be a fundamental right. We made education fundamental right only when the courts, the apex courts said. So these are all our experiments which tries to bring in that an educated Indian would imbibe the values, the social values, the political values, the economic values, the cultural values. But what we are seeing today, therefore, friends, in this session, the purpose of bringing the education philosophy of Baba Sahib, the very foundation that we had, People's Education Society. People's education. The state should give people education. People's Education Society. Founded People's Education Society, the motto which the moderator, Dr. Narendra Kumar, has brought in here, and that motto is the guiding spirit for all of us. We expected more participants. Since it's a Google Meet, it could not support the more participants, but I'm very happy and proud that in the YouTube, the entire process are being watched, and I'm very confident that Jagannath's thought-provoking words would be helpful for the new learners and those who have learned more on Baba Sahib can gauge the essence of this lecture. I'm very happy to say and conclude the purpose of today's lecture is well taken, and the credit should go to Dr. Jagannath.K.Dange, who has taken pain, who has really brought in the legacy of Baba Sahib's educational philosophy, his degrees, his writings, and his vision on education. And through that, he tried to look into the new education policy. That is the reason why there should be an interface. Because we, the teachers, we believe in building the society. We believe in creating the enlightened society. Therefore, we are all here. And I must thank the director of the Ambedkar Center, the principal of this college, Soumya Irappa, and my colleagues, my research team, and the staff of the Seshadripuram College for giving this opportunity to meet and talk on a very important area where we are trying to build a vibrant India. The new education policy speaks about vibrant India, and Baba Sahib is always a person who wanted to have a vibrant India. Thank you very much.